This is Pokemon Sword and Shield Ultimate, a ROM hack on GBA that I have been following for years now, and it's finally gotten its final update as the creator has decided to move on to doing a Sun and Moon demake next, and we're here today to see if we can beat a hardcore Nuzlocke, which means if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. If you like the video, this isn't your first time here, and you like the sound of my voice, you should definitely hit that subscribe button. The only way I'm going to be able to continue to grow as a creator is with all of your help. Anything you could do would be like super awesome. But without further ado, let's jump into Pokemon Sword and Shield Ultimate. After stepping outside of our house, we run into our best friend Hop and his trusty Wooloo. And I've got to say, I really like the tile set and the inclusion of the overworld Pokemon. I know that kind of thing is really hard to do on a ROM hack, and I really appreciate the creator for taking time to do that. And just like in the main game, we head over to the train station and run into Leon, Hop's older, really cool brother, who he doesn't wish he was at all. No, he definitely doesn't feel intimidated or overshadowed at all by his big brother who has never, ever lost a Pokemon battle. And now the time has come for us to choose our starter Pokemon. And we're going to be leaving the choice of our starter Pokemon up to fate. We're going to be basing it off of our trainer ID, which means if we have a 1 through 3, we're going to grab ourselves Grookey. 4 through 6, we're going to grab a Scorbunny. 7 through 9, we're going to grab a Sobble. And if our trainer ID ends with a 0, we'll pick our own starter. And since it starts with a 7, we're going to be taking Sobble, who, no offense, is by far my least favorite Galar starter. And since Sobble is based off of James Bond, we're going to go ahead and name him Dalton. And since Leon loves his fire lizard so much, Hop chooses the fire bunny. But Hop has no idea how type matchups work. So he's going to start off by sending in Wooloo, and we send in Dalton. We're going to go for a Growl in the first turn because I hit the wrong button, as the Wooloo also goes for a Growl. Then going for a Pound, we do a bit of damage, and we're going to get growled even more. And this honestly isn't looking that great as we continue to tackle and pound each other out, and he swaps into Scorbunny like a total dick. But luckily for me, the Nuzlocke technically hasn't started yet, and I'm going to go for a couple of growls on the Scorbunny before switching things up and going back to Pound. But we lose. But once again, luckily the Nuzlocke hasn't started yet. No, Hop, you aren't the greatest. Hop and I then decide to go on a romantic post-battle stroll in the woods where we run into this dog. And after it slashes us in the face, we lose our second ever Pokemon battle again. We meet up with Leon the following day in Wedgehurst where he thanks us for going easy on Hop. After all, we did have the type advantage there. Leon then gives us a mysterious package that he wants us to give to Sonia. Because like most people good at Pokemon, he's afraid to talk to girls. And as a gift for bringing this package to her, she decides to give us a phone. But not just any phone, a Pokedex phone. Sonia then lets us know that we should head over to the end of Route 2 to meet up with her grandmother, the actual professor. And with that, our Nuzlocke journey has begun. And what I really love is that there's a patch you can download that gives you access to rare candies, as well as vitamins if you want to go that route. Because as we all know, grinding is cringe. Over on Route 1, we're going to grab ourselves a Hoot Hoot, who I accidentally named Ty. Over on Route 2, we're going to grab ourselves a Blipbug, who we're going to nickname Radar. At the end of Route 2, we reach the real professor's house, but since she's an old lady, Leon's not afraid to talk to her. Professor Magnolia then recommends that Leon endorse the two of us for the Pokemon League, but before he's ready to do that, he needs to see us battle again, because it's been a whole 15 minutes. So it looks like it's time for us to take on Hop once again. He starts off by sending in Wooloo, and we send in Dalton. And going for a Water Gun, we do about half as he goes for a Copycat, doing barely anything to us. We're then going to fire off another Water Gun, bringing him down to about a third as he goes for a Growl. But joke's on you. I don't attack with my fists. And one more Water Gun seals this Wooloo's fate. And I did not realize that there was an automatic XP share. That is great. Anywho, Scorbunny comes in next. And we can go for another Water Gun, taking it down to about a third in one shot as the Scorbunny goes for a Growl. But once again, this thing doesn't apparently understand what moves I use, so one more Water Gun takes down the Scorbunny. And it looks like only one of the brothers is undefeated now, Hop. And Leon is convinced after seeing two guys with level 10 Pokemon battle a second time. We are definitely ready for the gym challenge. And with Leon's endorsements, we receive our Dynamax Band and Wishing Star, which means our gym challenge has officially begun. So just the heads up for the wild area, each of the individual areas aren't named like they are in the actual game, but I do have a map that breaks them up into 8 distinct spots. So I'll be doing my encounters in the wild area that way. In Wild Area 1, which I think is the Rolling Hills, we grab Pikachu, who we're gonna nickname Pizza. And additionally, Radar is going to evolve for the first time into Dottler. In Wild Area 2, which is shaped like a giant panda bear, I don't know what it's supposed to be, we find Growlithe. I think Dappled Grove, who we're gonna nickname Chili. And we're also gonna grab ourselves a fish fossil. After getting a Motostoke, it's time for us to meet back up with Hop, because apparently it's gonna be the opening ceremony for this year's gym challenge. This gym registration man / bellhop is incredibly confused as to why the champion has endorsed 2 brand new trainers, and then Hop lets him know nepotism is in full swing, because the champion is my brother, and I'm gonna be just as good and cool as him, I promise! And with our registration complete, it's time for us to go to the Bede Hotel. And at that hotel, Sonia is waiting for us. She said that Leon was supposed to meet them here so they could grab a drink at the bar, but she's pretty sure that he's afraid to talk to girls. She then also comments on the sword dog that we saw in the woods earlier. She turns her attention to this statue of what appears to be a Cresselia, holding an egg shield and a sword. That sword, a lot like the sword dog. But it couldn't be. The sword dog's a Pokemon. This is clearly some kind of Cresselia man. But maybe, just maybe, they're related. And that's when we're gonna be accosted by a bunch of soccer hooligans. And after beating up those soccer hooligans, enter this little goth girl. You can tell she's a goth girl because she's got black hair. But anyway, she tells them all to go home. And we can successfully check into the hotel, completing the next phase of our journey. Once we get onto Route 3, there's gonna be a surprise rival battle against Hop. I was not ready for this. Wooloo's gonna come in and we send in Dalton. And we're gonna go for a water gun, doing about a third, and apparently I didn't heal up after last night, and when we go for a second one, we're gonna get it down into the red as he continues to just growl at me, because this guy's like determined to lose at this point. And then I remembered I now have Water Pulse. Anywho, next up is gonna come Rookity, and we're gonna go for a Water Pulse on it, getting it way down into the red as it goes for a pluck, but we ain't holding no stinking berries. And after one more Water Pulse, we take this Birdo down, which leads into his Ace Scorbunny. And when we go for one Water Pulse, we can take him way down into the red as a tackle brings us down just below half. And with one more Water Pulse, the Scorbunny goes down, and we defeat Hop once again. On Route 3, we're gonna grab a Rookity, who we're gonna nickname Poe. Dalton is then going to evolve while battling some trainers on Route 3 into his second form of Drizzle. In the Galar mine, we're gonna grab ourselves a Noibat. At the back of the Galar mines, we run into this mysterious pink stranger. And after hearing that we've been endorsed by the Galar champion, he gets visibly frustrated because he's supposed to be the only Nepo baby here. He's been endorsed by the chairman. Chairman Rose loves him and thinks he's the coolest trainer ever. Bede's gonna go ahead and send out Solosis, and we send in Chili. I'm gonna outspeed it on the first turn, going for a bite where we can take this thing down super low, and then he's gonna set up a Reflect. After that, Bede's gonna swap out Solosis and then send in Gothita instead, where we can go for another bite, doing only about a quarter. Now going for another one, we're gonna get it down to about half as this thing sets off a Confuse Ray. So I'm gonna swap out and I'm gonna send in Dalton, and he's gonna swap out and send in Solosis again. Bede then uses a potion, and we can go for a Water Pulse, doing a lot of damage, grabbing ourselves the KO. Bede's gonna come back in, and we can go for another Water Pulse, bringing it down into the red as it goes for another Confuse Ray. So we're gonna swap out again, sending Chili back in, and the Gothita's gonna go for a Heart Stamp, doing barely anything to us. But we can go for a bite, finishing it off. Atena, his ace comes in, and we're gonna go for a bite on this Swalken Hat, doing just about 50% as it tries to go for a Sing, which fortunately it misses. And with another bite, this thing is down to just like 1 HP before we get put to sleep. And I'm gonna swap out Chili and send in Radar as he goes for a Smoochy Kiss on us. And then it goes for another Sing, putting Radar to sleep so we can't get the Struggle Bog off. And this goes for another Draining Kiss, we're still asleep. So I guess third time's a charm. I'll swap out again, this time sending in Dalton as it goes for another Smooch, doing some chip damage to us. And with a Water Pulse, we can take down the Hatena, defeating Bede. And with Bede defeated and his pride wounded, and after defeating Bede and wounding his pride, he says he needs to go find a bunch of wishing stars to make his boyfriend happy. Leaves. We make our way to Turffield and run into Sonia and her Yamper, and together we go on a romantic stroll through the town. She was really hoping she'd be able to hang out with Leon, but he's afraid to talk to girls. But we're not. We're not afraid to talk to girls at all. And after a romantic stroll and learning about the history of Galar in the darkest day, time for us to go get our first badge. On Route 4, we're going to grab ourselves an Eevee, who we're going to nickname Bean. While getting a little bit closer to the level cap, Poe is going to evolve into a Corvisquire. Before facing off against Milo, Ty is going to ascend into a Noctowl. And now it's time for us to take on Milo and his grassy goons. Milo starts off by sending in a Gossifleur, and we are going to be sending in Guy. And I'm going to waste absolutely no time. We are going to Dynamax Ty right away and go for a max Airstream on the Gossifleur, taking it down, which is obviously going to increase our speed. Next up, Eldegoss, who is going to Dynamax as well, and we can go for another max Airstream, doing only about a quarter. After that, Eldegoss is going to go for a max Strike on us, doing barely anything, but it's going to drop our speed down to +1. And with another max Airstream, we score a little bit bigger of a hit, getting him down to about a third, as another max Strike is going to come in on us, doing just a bit of damage. While with that, we're going to transform back to normal. Milo is then going to heal up, and we can go for a Peck as the Eldegoss reverts as well. And with another Peck, we're going to get him down just below half, as the Eldegoss goes for a round, doing a bit of damage to us. Now another Peck is going to bring this thing down way into the red, as another round is going to bring us down to about half. Milo then uses his second Super Potion to heal all the way back up, but I'm pretty sure at this point there's not anything that the Eldegoss can do, as our berry gets activated once we get knocked down below half. And after getting hit for a couple more rounds, a few more Pecks takes out the Eldegoss, and we defeat Milo. Over on Route 5, we're going to grab ourselves a Farfetch'd, who we're going to nickname Ducks. And in the daycare, we're also going to grab our gift Toxel. We run into hop over on Route 5, where it's time for us to take him on in another rival battle. He starts off with Wooloo, and we send in Pikachu, where we get the paralysis off right away with a Thunder Shock, and he's going to go for a Cotton Spore, lowering our speed. And with another Cotton Spore, he's going to lower our speed even more. And not even at +4 does this Wooloo hope to stand up against the fierce feat of our speed. And now at -6, Hop is going to use a Super Potion to heal up, and we go for another Thunder Shock. But at this point, I should probably swap out, and I do, sending in Poe, and the Wooloo is paralyzed. Now going for a Pluck, we can grab ourselves a massive hit and the KO. Next up comes his own Corvisquire. And our birds make each other so nervous that nobody wants to eat any of their berries, and I can go for a Pluck, doing just over 50%, as he does the same, doing quite a bit less to me. After that, Hop is going to heal up with a Super Potion, and we can go for another Pluck, but we roll a bit lower this time. And we follow up with another one, bringing him down into the red as he plucks us back, getting us to 50%. And with one final Pluck, we take down this feathered fiend, which is going to lead into his final Pokemon, Raboot. So we're going to swap out and send in Dalton, and he's going to go for a Fire Spin. So we're going to go for a Water Pulse, bringing him down way into the red, as he then goes for a Double Kick, getting us down just to about half, and with the Fire Spin, we're looking a little low now. And with a Quick Attack, excuse you, I get knocked down to just 14. But with one more Water Pulse, we take down Raboot, defeating the menace known only Hop. Hop realizes now that he's lost exponentially more battles than his brother ever did. And we see the friendly facade of Hop begin to break. His brother, the unbeatable champion, he must become an even more unbeatable champion. Then he leaves. In Hulber, we run into Chairman Rose and his assistant Oleana discussing dinner plans at the fancy seafood restaurant here in town. Bede then asks Senpai Rose if he can have a fancy fish dinner as well. But no, Bede, fish is for winners. And after denying his endorsement dinner, he turns to us and says that if we defeat Nessa, we can have a fancy seafood dinner with him, as long as we bring Professor Magnolia's granddaughter with us, which seems like an incredibly specific and weird invitation, but I do like fancy seafood. It's now time for us to take down Nessa and her wet and wild water guys. Since Pikachu's our only Pokemon that's super effective against it, I need to play smart here, so she starts off with Goldeen and I send in Poe. On the first turn, I'm going to go for a Hone Claws to try to increase my attack here, as it tries to go for a Whirlpool and fortunately misses. Now at +1, we're going to go for a Pluck, doing about 60%, as the Goldeen goes for an Agility. Nessa then uses the super potion and we can go for another pluck. And she heals up again, so we're going to go for another pluck as a water pulse comes in, doing a bit of damage, and we can take it down. Oracuda comes in next. Who's going to outspeed us with an Aqua Jet, getting us down to about 50%, and we can go for a pluck, getting it down to about a third. After that, another Aqua Jet's going to get us down to about a third, and a pluck will take down Oracuda. After that, her Ace Dreadnought comes in. And we're going to swap out sending in Dalton, and she is going to go ahead and Gigantamax this big old Dreadnought. Who's going to go for a Max Geyser, which will be able to resist, but it still does nearly half. And we're going to Gigantamax as well, and we're going to go for a Max Geyser of our own, which is going to be neutral against the Dreadnought, and it's going to do about a third. Another Max Geyser is going to come in against us, getting me down to 33, excuse you. So we're going to go for a Max Guard to protect ourselves, so that way we don't go down, and the Dreadnought is going to return to normal. We still have one more turn of being Dynamax, so we're going to go for another Max Geyser, bringing down the Dreadnought and defeating Nessa. We grab Sonia and head over to the fancy restaurant to meet up with Chairman Rose, and apparently we found another man who's not afraid to talk to girls. And once we sit down, the two of them appear to be in deep conversation about her grandmother's research, the wishing stars and their relation to Dynamaxing, the energy crisis going on here in Galar, all sorts of really cool and interesting smart people talk. And Oligana is just staring at me. This woman's giving me nothing! I'm not afraid to talk to girls, but this woman? I'm terrified. I stare at my fried tentacle calamari, wondering if its poison sting is still intact within these little rings of glory. Just anything to get me away from this woman. Chairman Rose then abruptly says that it's time for them to go. And they leave, leaving the bill behind for us. Wait, hold on, aren't you the richest man in the world? We run into Bede over in Galar Mine number 2, where he can smell the unmistakable scent. We were at the fancy fish restaurant with his beloved senpai, Rose! How could we, merely endorsed by the champion, win in such a glorious audience with his senpai? No, this will not stand. Bede will be Rose senpai's favorite! Anyways, Bede's gonna send in Solosis, and we send in Poe. I'm going to go for a Hone Claws on the first turn to raise up our attack and accuracy as he sets up a light screen, which is definitely the thing I would do when I go for a power trip. And I can grab the KO on the Solosis, no problem. Next up is going to come Gothita. And once again, we're going to go for another power trip, grabbing ourselves the Oko. After that is going to come a Galarian Ponyta, who, you guessed it, super effective. See you later, buddy. His final Pokemon, Haten, is going to come back in, and we can go for another power trip, AOing it in one, defeating Bede. And that's why I got to have the fancy seafood dinner, you dingus. In Galar Mine number 2, we're going to grab ourselves a Choodle, who we're going to nickname Lockjaw. On the Motostoke outskirts, we grab a Hitmonlee, who we're going to nickname Nugget. Knowing we're going to have to deal with Kabu soon, I am going to add Lockjaw into the party and evolve it right away into a Dreadnought. Before heading over to the Motostoke gym, we stop by the Budu Hotel at the request of this cute goth girl, because we all know that a budding romance always starts at the Budu Hotel. Marnie's going to start off by sending in a Krogunk, and we send in Poe. Marnie is then going to immediately swap out and send in more Pico, so when we go for a pluck, it does barely anything. I'm realizing I'm in kind of a crappy spot against electric Pokemon, so I'm going to swap out Poe and send in Nugget as he goes for a Thunderbolt, excuse you. He's then going to try to go for a Super Fang, but luckily misses, and I'm not messing around with any of this. We are going to go for a close combat right away and get rid of this godforsaken thing. He then sends Krogunk back in, and we can swap out Nugget and send in Poe as he goes for a Brick Break. We can fire back with a pluck, Okoing the Krogunk, which leads into Scraggy. And not wanting to get over the level cap, I'm going to swap Poe out and send in Chili, getting the Intimidate off as it goes for a Bite. We can then go for a Flamethrower, doing just over 50%, and a low sweep is going to get us to about half. Marnie then heals up with a Super Potion, and we can go for another Flamethrower before she heals up a second time. But 2 more Flamethrowers take Scraggy down, and we defeat Marnie. In the Motostoke gym, we're going to grab ourselves Marowak, who we're going to nickname Spectre. And before you tell me I spelt it wrong, it's for Moon Knight. And now it's time for us to take on Kabu and his Flame and Fire guys. Kabu starts off by sending in Ninetales, and we send in Lockjaw. The Ninetales is going to go for a Flamethrower, doing effectively nothing to us, and we can go for a Razor Shell, grabbing ourselves the Oko. Next up comes Arcanine, who is going to get the Intimidate off on us, which is unfortunate, and fortunately this thing misses his Thunder Fang as we go for a Razor Shell, doing just over 50%. We're then going to swap Lockjaw out and send in Spectre instead as Kabu uses a Super Potion. The Arcanine then goes for a Bite, doing about a quarter to us, and unfortunately we flinch as another Bite is going to come in doing even more this time. But we can then break through, going for an Earthquake, doing a massive amount of damage to this thing. So let's swap Spectre out and send Lockjaw back in as Kabu uses his next potion. Arcanine is then going to connect with a Thunderfang, getting us down to just about half, and we can go for a Razor Shell, finishing it off. Scorch comes in as his final Pokemon. And we are gonna Mega Digivolve into Large Turtle Guy, doubling our health as he goes ahead and Mega Digivolve Super Digi Gigantamax Volves into big Scorch. And with our 2 massive health bars, we let loose a maximum Geyser, doing about 60%, and the rain has begun. As a Max Flutterby comes in, slamming up against our mighty turtle, doing barely anything, but it does lower our special attack, which is fine because I attack physically, despite the fact that this looks like a giant geyser of water coming out of my mouth. And with one more hit, the Scorch goes down, and we defeat Kabu. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a Firestone so we can give it to Chili and have him evolve into an Arcanine. In Wild Area 3, we're gonna grab a Dreepy, who we're gonna nickname Launch. And in Wild Area 4, we're gonna grab ourselves a Go-Goat, who we're gonna nickname Rammy. Oh, apparently I can also get Mega Evolution in this game? I'm gonna have to backtrack and check on that. While updating our team a bit, Dux is going to evolve from a Galarian Farfetch'd into a Surfetch'd. We're also gonna add our Toxel into the party and have it evolve right away into a Toxtricity. In Hammerlocke, we run into Bede, Chairman Rose, and Oleano once again, where Bede is desperately trying to impress Senpai Rose. He empties his pockets to show that he has taken over 1,000 wishing stars. And while that sounds impressive, Chairman Rose would have been more impressive if it was 1,001. Better luck next time, Bede. Rose then lets Bede know that he has a meeting somewhere else with someone far more important and cooler than him. And that's when he walks 15 steps towards us. Apparently we were that more important person. And I really want to know why he's gaslighting Bede so much. Just say he doesn't want to be his senpai anymore. On our way over to Route 6, we run into Leon, who's worried about his little brother. He then slips us a $5 bill and asks if maybe we'd like to take the fall. But I couldn't possibly do that, Leon. It's a Nuzlocke! Route 6, we're gonna grab ourselves a Trapinch, who we're gonna nickname Goggles. We run into Hopover and Stow-on-Side, where we see him lamenting holding his Pokeballs. With the exception of that first battle against us and his gym challenges, he hasn't won any battles, and he's beginning to doubt himself. I look longingly at that crisp $5 that Leon slipped to me. Do I take the fall for my best buddy Hop, or do I go all out? Let's see. Hop's gonna start off by sending in Toxel, and we send in Lockjaw. I'm pretty sure I'm faster since I'm actually evolved, and I am, and going for an Earthquake absolutely annihilates this baby little Toxel. Next up comes Silcobra, which seems like a really weird choice, but anyways, we're gonna go for a Razor Shell and Oko this little sneaky snake. After that is gonna come Raboot, who outspeeds us going for a double kick, doing a decent amount of damage to us, but we can go for a Razor Shell right after that, KOing him in 1. His final Pokemon Pelipper comes in, and I was expecting Cramorant like in the games. I assume I can tank 1 hit, and I'm going to go for a Rock Tomb since it's still super effective, and we're going to score a pretty massive hit, getting him down quite low. Pelipper is then going to go for a Scald, which is going to burn us and get us down pretty low. Not wanting to risk the miss, we're going to swap out and send in Dalton as Hop uses a Super Potion. Going for a Sucker Punch, we do barely anything, and he's gonna go for a Rain-boosted Hurricane, confusing us and doing about 50%. And this is bad. Alright, well, we're gonna send in T as a Hurricane comes back in, hitting T, doing a lot less damage. On the following turn, I'm gonna go for a Calm Mind to boost up our defenses as a Scald comes in, getting the burn on us. And you have got to be kidding me. On the following turn, he goes for a Protect, and am I gonna lose to this Pelipper? Okay, cool, an Extra Sentry does a lot of damage as he fires off a Payback after that. The Pelipper goes for another Protect on the following turn, which is going to put him in a position where I don't know if another Extra Sentry is going to KO, but I have to hope that it does. Unfortunately, it does. And with that, we defeat Hop. And while Hop wasn't successful in defeating us in battle, he did almost KO several of our Pokemon. And with this renewed vigor, he heads over to the Stow-on-Side gym, where he's gonna get ready to face off against whoever the heck is the gym leader in this universe. Okay, cool, so apparently in this game, if I go left, I'll face off against Alistair, and if I go to the right, I'll face off against B. And while getting ready to face off against Alistair, Dalton is going to evolve into its final form of Inteleon. And now it's going to be time for us to take on Alistair and his ghastly ghouls. Alistair starts off by sending in Yamask, and we send in Tai. I'm going to start off by going for a Reflect, because I'm pretty sure the only thing this thing can do is disable and Brutal Swing me, as Reflect then gets disabled. He then swaps out and sends in Cursula, and we're going to go for a Calm Mind. And I know this thing is rocking an Ancient Power, but it doesn't go for that, it goes for a Curse, which is incredibly frustrating. Well, I guess I'm going to go for an Air Slash, and we take down the Cursula. Yamask comes back in, and I'm going to swap out Tai, and I'm going to send in Dux as he decides to go for a Brutal Swing. I'm then going to go for a knockoff, grabbing myself the Yoko. Next up comes Mimikyu, who's going to go for a Swords Dance on the first turn, and we can go for a knockoff. And apparently this thing was holding a Venusaurite, which seems weird, and he's going to go for a Play Rough, which I did not realize he had, because he doesn't have it in the normal games. And Dux goes down. Keep forgetting that their movesets are different than they are in the normal games, so here's Lockjaw. He then decides to Dynamax Mimikyu as opposed to Gengar, and the Mimikyu is going to go for a Max Starfall, scoring a massive hit against us. And we're going to go for a Razor Shell, doing, honestly, quite a bit of damage. But anybody I'm going to be swapping into would be in a crappy spot, so I need to stay in. And the Mimikyu unleashes a Max Phantasm, taking down Lockjaw. Now enter Chili. And I'm going to go ahead and Dynamax Chili and use a Max Flare, doing a bit of damage and getting the sun out. After that, Mimikyu is going to go for a Max Phantasm, which is going to do about a third to us, dropping our defense. And with Mimikyu returned back to normal, it's going to go for a Shadow Sneak, getting us to about half, but another Max Flare takes it down. Finally comes in Gengar, who apparently is already Gigantamaxed, but we're going to go for a Max Flare, grabbing ourselves the Yoko, and with that, we defeat Alistair. But we lost our first two Pokemon of the run. We meet up with Sonia outside the gym, where she let us know that she really enjoyed that double date that we had over at the fancy seafood restaurant. She thought Oleana and I had a really great connection, and she's heard that her and Chairman Rose are up by the monument. So why don't we take a stroll over there and see if we can all hang out? And just as soon as she proposes that plan, we hear something that sounds a lot like an explosion. After Sonia and I rush to the top of the monument, we find Bede commanding this Camparaja to bring the wall down. But where did he get such a powerful Pokemon? Bede screams out to the Camparaja that he only needs 3,001 more wishing stars to impress Roche-senpai, and he can't go back home until he gets them. And that's when Bede notices that we're here behind us. The guy that Chairman Rose already took to the fancy seafood restaurant, and why us and not him? He won't stand for any of it. None of us are going to get in his way. Bede sends in a Duo Scion, and we send in Tai. I'm going to go for a Calm Mind right away because I might as well, and this thing is going to fire off a Psybeam, unfortunately confusing me, but then I remembered I had a Lumberry. So we're going to go for a second Calm Mind as it goes for a Toxic. And I really should have kept that move that puts status conditions on the opposite person, but whatever, an Air Slash takes it down. Next up comes Gothorita, and we're going to outspeed, going for another Air Slash, doing a good amount of damage as a Psybeam punches into us, doing a decent amount. And with that and the Toxic, we need to swap. So we do, and I'm going to send in Chili, getting the Intimidate off on this thing, and the Gothorita is going to heal up with a Super Potion. After that, we go for a Bite, getting it back down into the red, and fortunately we get the Flinch, which is going to lead Bede into healing up again. But this time, we take it down. Next out comes Ponyta. And once again, we can go for a Bite, doing a decent amount of damage as a Growl does what Growl does, and Bede uses a third potion. What's up with this guy? Anyways, we can go for a couple of Flamethrowers and take out the horse, which leads into Hatterene, his final Pokemon. And we can go for a Flamethrower, doing about 2/3 as a Psychic slams into us, doing about 1/4. After that, we're going to go for a Chompy Chomp, finishing off the Hatterene, and with that, we defeat Bede once again. And by the rules of Pokemon, even though Bede has this Caparaja, he has to stop doing what he was doing because we won. Oleana and Rose make their way up to the top of the monument where we were originally supposed to have our double date with Sonia, and honestly, thank goodness Bede was trying to destroy this national monument, because I do not want to hang out with this lady again. Chairman Rose questions why this random child he's never seen before would steal his Caparaja and try to bust down a national monument. You're under arrest, little boy. Take him away, energy security guards. In Grimwood, we're going to grab ourselves a Galarian Weezing, who we're going to name Industry. Poe is going to evolve into a Corviknight. And now it's time for us to face off against Opal and her fairies. He's going to start off with Weezing, and we send in Poe. I'm going to go for a Hone Claws on the first turn, and the Weezing is going to set up some Toxic Spikes, which is fine with me, so let's go for a second one. And it's going to lay down a second layer of spikes, and hopefully I don't have to switch out, because if I do, this is going to be bad. And it's going to then go for a Dazzling Gleam, which does effectively nothing to us. We can then go for a +3 Steel Wing, taking the Weezing down in 1. Next out comes Mawile. And the Steel Wing is going to be neutral damage because, well, it's Steel type, and we're going to get it way down into the red as it goes for a Crunch, doing a bit of damage to us. Opal is then going to heal up with a Hyper Potion, and we can go for another Steel Wing, grabbing ourselves the KO. After that is going to be Togekiss, who's going to go for an Aura Sphere, which is going to be neutral to us, getting us about 50%, and we can go for a Steel Wing, grabbing the Oko. Our final Pokemon, Alcremie, comes in, and we're going to Dynamax right away, and guess what? So is she into a big ol' cake. And we're going to go for a Max Steel Spike, grabbing ourselves the Oko, defeating Opal. Over on Route 7, we're going to run into Hop again, where not only has he been practicing his battling, but he's also been practicing victory poses. But these victory poses are completely different than the ones his brother has, because he's no longer going to be living in Leon's shadow. He plans on stepping out and doing his own thing. Hop is going to start off by sending in a Trevenant, and we are going to send in Poe. We're going to go for a Drill Peck on this Haunted Tree right away, and we can grab ourselves a massive hit and the KO. Next up comes Magmar, who he doesn't normally have, but I'm guessing Heatmore was unavailable, so we're going to swap Poe out, and instead we're going to send in Dalton, as the Magmar goes for a Confuse Ray, which is incredibly frustrating. Dalton is then going to go for Snipe Shot on the Magmar, and we can pick up a huge hit, KOing it in 1. This is then going to lead into Bolton, so we're going to swap out Dalton, and instead we're going to send in Rami, and this doggo's going to go for a Charm, which is a little unfortunate. On the following turn, it's going to go for a Crunch on us, and hopefully we don't get the defense drop, and luckily we don't, and we can fire off an Earthquake, but we'll see what we can do at -2, and the answer is still over half. So Hop is then going to heal up with a Super Potion on the following turn, getting back almost to full, and we can unleash the mighty power of Earthquake, getting it back down pretty low. He then doesn't bother healing up as another Crunch is going to come into us, getting us down just below half, this time getting the defense drop, and we can go for one more Earthquake, KOing the doggo. Next up is Snorlax. So swapping Rami out, we're going to send Poe back in, and the Snorlax is going to go for a Giga Impact, excuse you, which only does about 40 to us, luckily. We can then go for a Steel Wing on the Snorlax, getting it down to about 1/3, and it's obviously going to recharge for after this. We can then follow up with a Drill Peck, getting it down quite low as he goes for a Rest to heal himself back up. So we're going to start going for Drill Pecks, and he tries to go for Sleep Talks, but fortunately he only uses additional Rest before using one Snore, and we take him down. Next is going to come is a Cinderace, and I like this sprite a lot. And we're going to swap Poe out and send in Dalton as he goes for a Flame Charge. Don't know why he doesn't use Pyro Ball, but whatever. After going for a Headbutt, we can go for a Spirit Gun, taking him down in 1. And with that, we've defeated Hop once again. Over on Route 7, we can grab ourselves a Galarian Meowth, who we're going to nickname X23. On Route 8, we're going to grab ourselves a Dusclops, who we're going to nickname Wazowski. And now it's time for us to face off against Melanie and her icy ice guys. Frostmoth comes in, and we send in Chili. We're going to go for a Flamethrower right away, taking down Frostmoth, no problem. Next up comes Lapras. And we're going to swap out, sending in Hi-Fi, and Melody is going to Gigantamax right away and unleash a Max Geyser on us. We're getting us down below half. And I gotta hope I can take another hit from this thing, so we're gonna Gigantamax ourselves, going for a Max Lightning, and we don't even do half. So when Melody goes for another Maximum Geyser, Hi-Fi can barely tank it. She is left on just 1 HP. So we are gonna go for a Max Guard so we can block her last turn before she inevitably is gonna transform back to normal. And we can let off a Max Lightning while we are still Gigantamax taking down Lapras. And I realize I'm saying Gigantamax when I mean Dynamax, but, you know, whatever. Anywho, Darmanitan comes in next, and I'm going to turn back to normal. So we're going to swap out and send Chili back in, intimidating this thing as it goes for a Headbutt. We can then go for a Flamethrower, grabbing the Yoko. Ice Cube comes in as her final Pokemon, and we can outspeed, going for a Flamethrower, grabbing ourselves a massive hit, getting it way down into the red, and it decides to go for a Freeze Dry. And after doing a bit of chip damage to us, Melanie is going to heal up with a Hyper Potion, and we can go for another Flamethrower, which is going to prompt her to heal up once again. But after we can land a couple more Flamethrowers and go through all 3 of her potions, we can inevitably take down this little fella with the help of a burn. And with that, we've earned our 6th badge. After defeating Melody, we meet up with Sonia outside the gym. And she lets us know that there's another fancy restaurant in this town, and maybe just the 2 of us could go there this time. It's called Bob's Your Uncle. But apparently this was a trick because Hop's here too. I thought this was gonna be a date. After our less than romantic date at the fancy restaurant with Hop and Sonia, we go for a less than romantic stroll throughout Chester City. And Hop, invigorated by the smell of romance, wants to battle us. He starts off by sending in a double, and we send in Chili. I'm gonna go for a Flamethrower right away, doing about 50% as this big old sheepy sheep goes for a double edge, scoring a pretty big hit on us. Is then gonna heal up with a Super Potion, and we can go for a Flamethrower, bringing it down to about a third, which is gonna lead him to heal up again. But after we go for a couple more Flamethrowers, he's gonna go for an Endure like a total jerk, and then use a Salac Berry. And then he's going to go for a reversal after that, getting me to about 50%, but one final Flamethrower takes double down. Next comes Snorlax, who I assume is packing thick fat, so we're going to swap out, sending in Poe, and the Snorlax is going to go for a double edge, which does basically nothing to Poe. He then swaps out and sends in Cinderace, and we're going to go for a Drill Peck, doing just about 50%. But I'm not risking a Pyro Ball, so we swap out Poe and send in Dalton, and luckily we can avoid it. After that, this thing goes for a Sucker Punch, doing about a quarter, and we can go for a Spirit Gun, taking Cinderace down. Up next is gonna come Pincushion. And I don't have like a great thing for this, so we're gonna swap out, sending in Rammy as he goes for a charge. And then I remember that Rammy is packing Earthquake, so we're gonna go for that, taking this thing down way into the red. And it's gonna fire back with an Electro Web, which we can obviously resist, but it is gonna lower our speed. He then swaps out and sends in his own Corviknight, which is a wicked dick move, dude. So we're gonna swap out and send in Hi-Fi as he decides to go for a Brave Bird, which we can resist. We then fire off a Discharge, getting this thing down into the red as it fires off another Brave Bird, getting me down to 50%. He then swaps out Corviknight, sending in Pincushion, and this thing has Lightning Rod, which is incredibly frustrating, but we can go for a Venoshock, finishing it off, which is going to lead back into Snorlax. And seriously, dude, can we stop with the swapping? I'm going to send Poe in, and he's going to go for a double edge, doing a bit of damage. Let's see how much his Drill Peck does, and the answer is quite a bit, and luckily we don't get hit by our Hammer Arm, and one more Drill Peck takes Snorlax down. This leads back into his Corviknight. Oh, we can outspeed, go for a Drill Peck, take down, and we defeat Hop. And even though Hop just lost the battle, he can take solace in one thing. His brother's too afraid to talk to girls. He's been talking to Sonia this entire time. So even if he's not the greatest Pokemon battler in the world, he at least has a little bit of something that the kids call the Riz. And I think it's about time we head over to Spikemuth to get our next badge. Route 9, we're going to grab ourselves a Gastrodon, who we're going to nickname Goobert. Once we make our way over to Spikemuth, apparently the entrance has been blocked by a bunch of soccer hooligans. But our cute goth girlfriend is just over the fence, and she knows a secret entrance. But before she shows us her secret entrance, we have to beat her in a Pokemon battle. Barney starts out by sending in Leopard, and we send in Chili. And I'm going to swap out Chili, and we're going to send in Poe, as this thing tries to go for a Sucker Punch. It then goes for a workup, and I was hoping it would try to go for another Sucker Punch, and we're going to go for a Hone Claws. After that, we do get smacked by a Sucker Punch, but going for a Drill Peck, we can successfully take down this kitty cat. Next up comes more Pico. And I am not confident I can Oko this thing, so we're going to swap out, sending in Rami, and he's going to go for an Aura Wheel, doing a decent amount of damage to us. After that, he's going to go for a Crunch, and I accidentally go for Seed Bomb instead of Earthquake, so now I'm going to need to swap out. So we're going to do just that and send in Hi-Fi as Marnie heals up with a Super Potion. He tries to go for an Aura Wheel, which doesn't do anything to us, and we're going to go for Toxic. And now that this thing is poisoned, we're going to go for a Venoshock, but not before we get Super Fanged, which is just honestly kind of annoying. And a Venoshock is going to take down the Morpeko. Out next comes Scrafty, and we're going to swap out and send in Poe, as the Scrafty goes for a Head Smash, which fortunately because of our Steel typing doesn't do a lot of damage, and I was going to send in Tai. We are very lucky. Anyways, I'm going to go for a Drill Peck and Oko this thing. Her final Pokemon, Toxicroak, comes in, who's shuddering in anticipation, and goes for a Drain Punch, getting me down pretty low. And we are going to go for a Drill Peck, grabbing ourselves the Oko, and we defeat Marnie. Now show us your secret entrance! And after fighting our way across Spikemuth, it's time for us to take on Piers and his Dark Dudes. The only real downside here is that I not only took Poe out because I was afraid he was going to go over the level cap, I didn't get the rest of my team to the level cap. So let's see if we can beat this with 5 Pokemon with Rami being underleveled. Crafty goes for a Fake Out, which is honestly just kind of annoying, and then I'm going to set up a Reflect on the following turn as this thing goes for a Thunder Punch. I'm then going to fire back with an Air Slash right away, taking this thing down quite low as the Scrafty goes for another Thunder Punch. Piers then uses the Hyper Potion, and I'm going to go for a Roost, healing myself back up and ditching my Flying typing. Now we're going to go for a Calm Mind, and this thing is going to go for another Thunder Punch. And at +1, let's see if an Air Slash is enough, and luckily it is. With my Reflect gone, in comes Malamar. I was hoping that Tai was faster than Malamar, but he's not. But fortunately, I only get knocked down to 19 HP, which is wonderful. And after using Roost a few times, we are going to get back up to full before I can set up another Reflect. I'm then going to swap out Tai and send in Hi-Fi as he goes for another Night Slash. After that, I completely forget this thing is Psychic as a Psycho Cut cuts me down just below half, and I can go for a Toxic, getting the poison off. And we're now going to swap out Hi-Fi and send in Rami as Piers uses a full heal. Well, that's frustrating. Anyways, he's going to go for a Foul Play, and we can go for a Leech Seed. And again, with my Reflect gone, the Foul Play is probably going to do quite a bit of damage to me now, and yeah, I get knocked down to 52. But we're going to go for a Seed Bomb and the Malamar, getting it down just below half, and the Leech Seed's going to heal us up a bit. So we're going to swap out into Dalton because he's got crappy attack, and Piers uses a Hyper Potion. Assuming another Night Slash, we're going to go for a Sucker Punch since it's neutral, and yep, it does nothing. And this thing decides to go for a Payback, which is going to do almost half to us. So we let loose a Spirit Gun, taking this thing down wicked low. And when it hits us with another Payback, the Leech Seed is going to take Malamar down. Up next comes Skuntank. We're going to swap out Dalton and send in Chili. It tries to go for a Sucker Punch, but fortunately I had swapped out, and we can go for a Flamethrower with Chili on the following turn, doing about a third, with a Poison Jab coming in doing a little bit of damage to us. After that, we can go for another Flamethrower, bring this thing down quite low, as another Poison Jab gets us to just about half. Piers is then going to start healing up, and luckily this is putting me in a good position, where I know I won't do enough damage to take it down when it's really high, so the Aftermath won't do a lot, but then he swaps out into Obstagoon like a total jerk, and a Flamethrower only does a third. But nobody is healthy enough for me to risk a switch, so I have to keep in Chili, going for another Flamethrower, bringing Obstagoon down quite low as it heals up with a Citrus Berry. Then goes for a Throat Chop, getting Chili down to 1 HP. And with another Flamethrower, we bring this thing down into the red as another Throat Chop takes out Chili. but I know Dalton is fast, so we're going to swap him back in, go for a snipe shot, taking out Obstagoon. And Skuntank comes back in. I don't want to risk a Sucker Punch, so I swap out into High Five because he's a little bit healthier as he tries to go for a Toxic. The Skuntank then does indeed go for that Sucker Punch, getting me down to 7. And an Overdrive takes it down. And we beat Piers, and luckily we only lost one Pokemon. To replace our Arcanine, we are going to switch in Goggles and start evolving it. First, into a Vibrava. And one more time, into a glorious Flygon. Before we can head into the Hammerlocke gym and take on Raihan, we find all of our friends who are discussing the fact that apparently Pokemon are randomly Dynamaxing out in the wild. But luckily Leon's there to make everything better. But since he's incapable of talking to girls, he's just staring blankly at Sonia while talking to his brother and Professor Magnolia. And this is getting really awkward. But when they're done talking about all that boring grown-up stuff, it's time for me to take on the gym. And now it's time for us to take on Raihan and his dragon dudes, even though half of them aren't dragons. Also, this battle's not a double battle in this game, apparently. Anywho, we're going to send in Dalton. We're going to go for a Snipe Shot on the Gigalith right away, taking it down to its Sturdy. And the Gigalith is going to respond with a Stealth Rock. After that, Raihan heals up with a Hyper Potion, and we can go for another Snipe Shot, bringing it back down to its Sturdy before he uses a full Restore. So we're just going to keep on shooting this thing until inevitably it goes down, but I don't know how many turns that's going to be because I don't know how many items Raihan has. And the answer is that many. See ya. Next up comes Duraludon. And I don't know what moves this guy has, but he is going to Gigantamax right away. I was not ready for that. And we're going to go for an Ice Beam, doing about a quarter as the Duraludon goes for a Max Lightning. And Dalton goes down. Alright, so I guess we send in Rami here. And we're going to Dynamax Rami right away as this thing goes for a Max Whirlwind on us, which is going to do a bit of damage, lowering our attack, which is unfortunate. But we are going to go for a Max Quake, bringing it down to about half, increasing our special defense. We're then going to go for a Max Guard to waste this thing's last turn as it returns to normal. It's going to follow up with a Draco Meteor, doing a bit of damage to us, and we can go for a Max Knuckle, getting our attack back to normal before we inevitably return to normal. It then sets up a light screen, and we're going to Brick Break that light screen away, taking down the Duraludon. Next up comes Flygon. And I don't know what this thing has, but apparently the answer is Outrage. So let's send in Poe. And since I know I can resist the Outrage, I'm going to go for a Hone Claws as it's now confused. And after it punches itself in the face, we're going to go for a second Hone Claws. And after it punches itself in the face again, a Drill Peck takes out Flygon, which leads into Sandaconda. And going for another Drill Peck, we can get this thing down quite low as it brews up a Sandstorm with Sand Spit. And I didn't realize I had Fire Fang, but luckily it's a Sandaconda. And we defeat Raihan. And even though I don't love Inteleon, I love the coverage. And Go-Go is low-key one of my favorite Pokemon. But with our 8th and final badge, we now qualify for the semifinals. Needing to fill our team back up, we're going to add Radar back in and have it evolve right away into an Orbeetle. Over on Route 10, we're going to grab ourselves a Duraludon, who we're going to nickname Sky. Courageous Cavern, we grab Granbull, who we're going to nickname Bully. And for our first battle of the semifinals, it's going to be time for us to take on Marnie, who starts off with Leopard and we send in Goggles. It tries to go for a Sucker Punch, and we're going to go for a couple of Dragon Dances because, I mean, I have to, right? I have Dragon Dance, and we're going to get ourselves to +3 as this thing continues to try to go for Sucker Punches, so I might as well try to outlast all 5 Sucker Punches as it uses this 4th one. And after using its 5th one, we are now at +5 attack and speed. And we can go for a Dragon Claw, taking down Leopard. Next out comes Grimmsnarl. And I'm not going to waste any time here. We're just going to Dynamax right away, and Grimmsnarl is going to Gigantamax, which I should have remembered that's what she does, but we can go for a Max Quake. And at +5, this Grimmsnarl goes down. Next out comes Scrafty, and we're going to go ahead and go for a Max Whirlwind, taking out Scrafty in just 1. Toxicroak's up after that, who's shuddering in anticipation, and even though it's going to hit us with a Sucker Punch, it does basically nothing, and we can take it out with an Earthquake. Our final Pokemon, Morpeko, comes in, and we're going to return to normal. It's gonna go for the quick attack, doing a bit of chip damage, but once we let loose another Earthquake, we take down the Morpeko, and we defeat Marnie. And for our second battle of the semifinals, it's gonna be time for us to take on Pop, who starts off with Double and we send in tie. And my plan here is to do basically the same thing. We're gonna stack up a couple of combines and hopefully it works, as a Double Edge absolutely slams us. Though after setting up a Reflect, we're in a little bit better of a spot here, and I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of Roost, but whatever, that's my own fault. And now that we're down into the red, we're gonna try to go for an Air Slash, but he goes for an Endure like a jerk. He then swaps out Dubwool, sending in Corviknight, and we can go for an Air Slash, and at +3, it does not a lot. So we're gonna swap out and send in Goobert, as this thing goes for a Brave Bird. With the Reflect gone, he's gonna go for a Swagger, which is a little frustrating, but we break through with an Ice Beam, doing a bit of damage to Corviknight. After that, Hop is going to use a Full Restore, and we're still confused, but we break through, which is nice. He then goes for another Brave Bird, which is going to bring us down quite low, and we can fire off a Scald, getting him down low. Now I assume Hop's going to heal up, but we're going to swap into a Hi-Fi as Hop goes for a Full Restore. He then swaps out Corviknight, sending in Pincushion, who has Lightning Rod. So let's go for a Toxic and do what we did last time, as he goes for a Charge, which is a little frustrating. But we're still going to go for a Venoshock, getting it down quite low, as an Electroweb does more than honestly it probably should have. He then swaps out Pincushion, sending in Cinderace, who we can get down to about half. The Cinderace goes for a Pyro Ball, absolutely annihilating Hi-Fi. And I know he was in Gigantamax form, but he didn't Gigantamax. Here comes Goggles, I guess. Yeah, now he's going to Gigantamax the Cinderace. This is a little frustrating. Whatever, we're going to do the same thing with Goggles, as he goes for a Max Mindstorm, doing a bit of damage to us, setting up the Psychic Field, but we can go for a Max Quake, taking out Cinderace. And it's annoying to have to replace a Pokemon this late in the game, but Hop's going to heal up with a Full Restore, and we're going to go for a Max Darkness, lowering this thing's special defense, which basically doesn't mean anything because we are physical attackers. But an Earthquake takes it out. Probably should have done that in the first place. Here comes Corviknight, and we're back to normal. I'm going to go for a Dragon Dance because, well, I might as well, and he's going to go for a Swagger. So now at +3, I really have to hope I don't smack myself. And we don't! And the Crunch does a bunch of damage, as a Brave Bird also does a bunch of damage. But I can't risk hitting myself, so we swap into Poe, as a Brave Bird does basically nothing. We can then go for a Drill Peck, also doing basically nothing, and now we're confused. And that's annoying, but we hit it, so it goes down. Pincushion comes back in, and fortunately we don't smack ourselves in the face, and we can take it down. Which leads into Snorlax, his final Pokemon. And after we snap out of confusion, a Drill Peck scores a massive hit, as a Thunder Punch does effectively nothing. And with one more, Snorlax goes down. And I can't believe we lost Hi-Fi, but we did beat Hop. After defeating Hop, we run into Leon, who offers to take us out to dinner. He lets us know that he's always seen us as something of a brother to him. Meanwhile, his actual brother is standing right next to us, and I guess he can come too. Up to the restaurant, where Leon never showed up. And Piers lets us know that there's some weird stuff going on at Rose Tower. So there's a good chance that Leon's over there investigating it. So we should go investigate it too. Needing to fill up the last spot in our team, I'm going to give Pizza a Water Stone, so that way it'll evolve to a Alolan Raichu. After getting to the top of Rose Tower, apparently we can't go see Leon, because he and President Rose are having a very important business meeting. And my scary girlfriend will not let us pass. She says we have two options. We can either go home, or take her to Kanto on vacation. And I say there's a third option. Pokemon battle. Olena starts off with Garbodor, and we send in Goggles. This thing I should have assumed was going to Gigantamax right away because it's her ace, and I'm going to go for a single Dragon Dance, as this thing goes for a Max Hailstorm, getting me down to 41. And I don't have anything that can resist ice, but we are going to swap out into Goobert, who at least takes a lot less damage. And we're going to Dynamax ourselves, as this thing decides to go for a Max Ooze, doing effectively nothing to us, and we can let loose a Max Wake, getting this thing down wicked low, raising up our special defense. And with this goon back to normal, we're going to take care of it with a Max Quake, but not before we get Freeze Dried down below half. Next out comes Serena. And I'm going to go for a Max Guard, assuming a Power Whip, and we call it as we return back to normal. We can then swap out Goobert, sending in Poe as it goes for another Power Whip, doing basically nothing to us. But then we outspeed with a Drill Peck, getting it down quite low as a high jump kick does a little bit of damage to us. She's then going to heal up her Serena as we get it back down into the red once again, and we're going to start doing this dance where she uses all of her potions until inevitably we can take out the Serena. But I don't know how many potions it has because I wasn't paying attention. There we go. Next out comes Salazzle. And this is what I was saving Goobert for, so let's see what happens as I swap in, and luckily an overheat misses. But not on the second turn, as it comes in hitting us, but luckily doing effectively nothing. We can then fire off a ×4 super effective Earthquake, taking out Salazzle. Melodic comes out next, and she's going to go ahead and set up a Rain Dance, and I'm honestly not sure if she can hit me with anything, so I'm going to go for a Recover here and hope that she doesn't have a Grass Knot. He does go for an Ice Beam, doing a bit of damage to us, but then we can heal back up to full. And after getting hit with another Ice Beam, we can go for a neutral Earthquake, doing about half. For that, the Melodic is going to recover as well, so I have a feeling we're going to be going back and forth with this thing for a little while. But she changes things up, going back for another Ice Beam, and we can go for an Earthquake, getting it down into the red, as it then decides to go for a Recover, and hopefully we roll a little bit higher this time, but we don't, and we're going to start going back and forth with this thing. Eventually I run out of PP on Earthquake, so I have to switch over to Scald, but at least I get the burn off on this thing, which is something I guess, and it then goes for a Rain Dance once it runs out of Recovers. Just kidding, it didn't run out of Recovers. Eventually I get sick of this and swap out into Pizza as she goes for yet another Recover. This is absolutely ridiculous. Anywho, we're going to go for a Thunderbolt, taking this thing down quite low as it fires off a Skull, getting us down to about half. But with the second Thunderbolt, we successfully take out Melodic. Our final Pokemon Frostlass comes in. And I'm scared, so we're going to swap out, sending in Poe, and this thing's going to go for a Shadow Ball. After that, it's going to go for a neutral Stab Ice Beam, getting me down to 22. And we can go for a Steel Wing, luckily grabbing the Oko, and we defeat Olena. And also by the rules of Pokemon, we are now allowed into that office, and I don't have to take you on a vacation, because that's weird. We then proceed into Chairman Rose's office, where him and Leon are having a dour meeting. Apparently, all this time there's been some sort of energy crisis that Rose has been trying to resolve. When Leon asks Rose how much time we have left before this energy crisis takes hold, he reveals that we have like 1,000 years. And while we should all do our part to prevent global catastrophe, I'm pretty sure we can hold off this plan for like literally one day so we can have the championship. But Rose disagrees. And that's when the two grown-ups notice that there's a couple of teenagers behind them, and they'll continue this conversation later. But why don't we go to that fancy restaurant now? And in a surprise twist, apparently Opal also retired this year. But she didn't even want to wait for the season to be over. She's already replaced herself with Bede, because all of that glorious pink. Plus, all of his Pokemon also become fairies once they evolve. So now it's time for us to take on him in our first battle of the totally not Elite Four. Mawile comes in and we send in Goobert. After getting hit with a Sucker Punch, we can go for an Earthquake, taking down Mawile. Next out comes Gardevoir, who is going to set up a Calm Mind, which is super annoying, and I'm going to go for a Scald, and I don't get the burn. So we're going to swap out and send in Poe, as this thing goes for a Moonblast, which we can resist. After getting hit with a second Moonblast, we're now down below half, and I'm going to go for a Steel Wing, taking out Gardevoir. Next out comes Hatterene. And I know that this is his ace, so I am going to Dynamax right away to get Poe a little bit of extra health, and he is going to go ahead and Gigantamax his Hatterene, and luckily we outspeed with a Max Steel Spike, and we can take it down super low, increasing our defense. After that, it's going to go for a Max Flare, which I did not realize it had a Mystical Fire, but here we are, and I'm left on 7. He then swaps out, sending in Galarian Rapidash, and we can go for another Steel Spike, taking it down. And left on just 7 HP. One more Steel Spike takes down Hatterene, and we defeat Bede. And I cannot believe how close we were to losing Poe there. And now it's time for us to take on Nessa and her Wet and Wild Water guys. Pelipper comes in, and I'm going to send in Pizza. And we're going to go for a Thunderbolt right away, taking out the Pelipper. Next out comes Golisopod. And I'm now realizing that the level caps are different than they are in the normal game, as it decides to go for a Pin Missile, doing a whole heck of a lot of nothing. We can then go for a Drill Peck doing just over 50%, which is going to send in Barraskewda, who's going to hit us with a Waterfall for about 50%, and I can go for a Hone Claws. And after getting hit with another Waterfall, we're down to 31, and I score a massive hit, which is going to lead Nessa to using her first Hyper Potion. And going for another one, we're going to get it down wicked low. And since I'm assuming she's going to heal up again, we swap out into Pizza as Nessa goes for another Hyper Potion. But it outspeeds us going for a Crunch, getting me down to 31, but we can take it down in one shot. Here comes Golisopod again. And this time we're going to swap out into Tai as he uses a full restore. I'm going to then go for a Calm Mind as this thing goes for a Razor Shell, scoring a massive hit on us. And after following up with a Sucker Punch, I'm on 15, but we can get it down to basically nothing as Sea King comes in. So we're going to swap out and send in Goober as it goes for a Waterfall, increasing our special attack. After that, a Poison Jab is going to poison us, and we can go for an Ice Beam, doing basically nothing. And after that, we're going to get hit with a Mega Horn, and we can follow up with an Earthquake, getting it down quite low. And then after getting Icicle Crashed, down goes Goobert. So here comes Goggles, my only healthy Pokemon, who should not be fighting any of these things. But anyways, Sea King goes down, which is going to lead back into Golisopod, who's going to hit us with a Sucker Punch, but then I can Earthquake, and down it goes. Her final Pokemon, Dreadnought, comes in. And we're going to Dynamax because I know that she is going to Gigantamax. And from here, we can go for a Max Quake, doing just over 50%, as this thing is going to go for a Max Rockfall, doing basically nothing, but it will increase my special defense. Thanks, buddy. And with one more Max Quake, we take down Dreadnought. Unfortunately, we lose our Gastrodon. Normally, I wouldn't do this, but since we have access to our box, I'm going to put Spectre in because I know we're facing off against Alistair, and if I know anything about his team, he's probably going to just try to Will-O-Wisp literally everyone I have. So with that being said, it's now time for us to face off against Alistair and his Ghastly Ghouls. As he sent in Dusknoir, we send in Spectre, who's going to go for a Hex right away, doing up about 50%, and we can go for a Shadow Bone, doing the same. Alistair then used this first full restore, and I have to just keep on throwing bones at this thing because it's an absolute menace. And now I'm at 1 HP as another Shadow Bone rolls a bit higher, taking it down. Next out comes Chandelure, who I'm not faster than, and a Flamethrower can take me down. But honestly, I just needed to get rid of that Dusknoir. Now enter Goggles. And we are going to go for a Stab super effective Earthquake, taking out Chandelure in one. Next out comes Cursula. And we're going to go ahead and go for a Crunch where we can take this thing down way into the red, but unfortunately we activate its weak armor and we get Will-O-Wisped. I knew he was going to do this. Alright, let's start going for Dragon Dances to try to recover a little bit of my strength here. And after we go for 2 Dragon Dances, this thing goes for a Hex, doing a butt ton of damage. So let's hope it +1 a Crunch is enough, and luckily it is. Next up comes Poltegeist. And once again, I'm hoping that a Empowered Crunch is enough, but unfortunately it's not. And a Giga Drain finishes off Goggles. So let's send in Tai, because I don't think he can really do anything to me. Besides go for Giga Drains, which I resist anyway, so we're going to set up a Calm Mind as he uses Nasty Plot and then heals up. And now that we're at +2, it's going to go for a Giga Drain, which we obviously resist. And we're going to continue using more and more Calm Minds because I'm going to need to do something about this Gengar that's going to come in a couple minutes. And after getting the +4 and tanking a couple of Giga Drains, we are going to go for an Air Slash, taking it down really low. But I can't believe we didn't KO this thing. Anyways, this Tea Kettle goes down after just one more hit, which is going to lead in to Gengar, who is going to Gigantamax, and we are going to Dynamax Tai. The Gengar goes for a Max Darkness, doing basically nothing, bringing our special defense down 1 stage, and we can go for an Empowered Max Airstream, OHKOing it. And we defeat Alistair, but just barely. And now it's time for us to take on Raihan and his Dragon Dude. Gigalith comes in, who's the biggest dragon of them all, and we send in Sky. I'm going to go for a Stab super effective Flash Cannon right away, bringing him down quite low as he goes for a Stealth Rock. He then swaps out, sending in his own Duraludon, and we can go for another Flash Cannon, doing a bit of damage. I'm then going to Dynamax right away as this thing goes for a Draco Meteor, which still does an absolutely bonkers amount of damage to me. A Max Steel Spike doesn't do nearly as much damage back to him. With a Max Wormwind, I'm down to 7, but a Steel Spike takes out the Duraludon. His Gigalith comes back in, and I can take it out with another Max Steel Spike. This leads into Goodra. And now that I'm back to normal, I go down right away. So let's send in Industry. And I really wish I knew the proper level caps here, because all these Pokemon are on way higher levels than me. Anyways, I'm going to Toxic the Goodra. And then after getting hit with a Weather Ball, I'm down to 37, and a Weird Steam is going to get the confusion off, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, though, he doesn't smack himself in the face, and then he goes down. So let's send in Radar. And I'm going to go for a Calm Mind on the first turn, hoping that he smacks himself in the face, but he doesn't. And the poison's not enough for the KO, but he doesn't heal up. He swaps out in the Flygon. That's weird. Anyways, Crunch is going to kill Radar. So here comes Poe. And this thing decides to go for a Dragon Dance, and I decide to go for a Hone Claws. And after going for a second Dragon Dance, I hope that a +1 Play Rough is enough for the KO, and it isn't. As Raihan then uses his first full restore, and we can go for a Stab Drill Peck doing a bit of damage before Raihan heals up again. So now I have to hope that I roll higher, and I do, KOing Flygon, which brings Turtonator in. And I don't have a real good option here, so I'm going to go for a Drill Peck as he goes for a Shell Smash. And then a Flamethrower takes down Poe. So here comes Pizza, who is still faster than Turtonator, and with a Psychic I can take it down, which leads back into Goodra. And Raihan uses a full restore, which I don't know why I didn't see that coming. So let's go for a Calm Mind here and see what we can do as the Goodra sets up another Rain Dance to go for Weather Balls on a electric Pokemon, I guess. And after getting the +2, he goes for a Power Whip. So we can let loose a +2 Psychic, and we don't even do half before going down. Now down to just tie. He goes for a Weather Ball, and I go for a Reflect. And with the Dragon Pulse, tie goes down. And with that, our Pokemon journey comes to a close. We were only 2 battles away from beating the game. If you liked the video, the sound of my voice, and you made it this far and you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Come on, hit that button. You know you want to. I've got to say that I really enjoyed this game. So if you're interested in trying out a really cool demake of Pokemon Sword and Shield, you can check out the link to their Discord down below in the description. And I do a new Nuzlocke video just about every week on a lot of different ROM hacks and fan games. So let me know in the future what you'd like to see. And once again, don't forget to subscribe. But anywho, I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya!